Good day everyone, I am Mildred Indac and together with my groupmates, we will be discussing the second module which is all about creating an effective related review of relevant scientific literature. At the end of this module, we are expected to set selection criteria for studies relevant to a chosen scientific problem, review, digest, and state the relevance of the studies cited, use scientific sources in accordance to ethical standards, write a well-drafted and coherent review of related literature, and acquire the skills necessary in preparing an effective scientific literature review. To begin this topic, we have to learn first about the possible sources of information that we can use in gathering relevant literature. Initially, an information source refers to a person, thing, or place from which information comes, arises, or is obtained. So, in every scientific study, we need to know what reliable information we can use and where to actually find it so that our review of related literature will have credibility as well. There's even a big idea saying that although there is a wide selection of literature to choose from for your research, one should only source information from credible and reputable journals. Here is Axel Arao to introduce different places to search for sources of information and the types of information that we can actually gather from them.
Sources of information. There are various places to search for sources of information such as universities, libraries, research institutes, museums, and government offices, to name a few. In these places, you can source information from newspapers, conference, meetings or seminars, reports, patents, journals and magazines, books, and others. You can also obtain sound ideas from colleagues through private conversations and correspondences from managers who may disclose unclassified information to core unit team members only, or even from your own personal observations, among others.
There are two types of sources of information. They are primary source and secondary source. I'm gonna explain and discuss to you what is a primary source. A primary source gives you first-hand data or raw knowledge about a phenomenon, an object, or an experiment based on the researchers or the persons involved themselves. However, primary sources needs permission or authorization from the researchers first before you can use them. Sometimes, in the case of primary sources, the research has not been published yet. A primary source is an original, first-hand account or evidence of an event, topic, or historical period. It is created by someone who directly witnessed or experienced the subject matter being studied. Primary sources provide direct access to the original information or data, giving researchers and historians a closer and more authentic understanding of a particular topic. There, this is some examples of primary source. These are theses, dissertations, scholarly journal articles, some government reports, symposia, and conference proceedings, original artwork, poems, photographs, interviews, speeches, letters, memos, personal narratives, diaries, autobiographies, and correspondence.
Secondary sources of information. The process or analyzed form of a primary source. So kanang mga dili na gyud gikan mismo sa researcher nga mga information kay gitawag na siya secondary source of information. So the purpose of it is to interpret or explain the meaning of the information in primary sources. Secondary sources help you to understand more about a person's life as well as how and why an historical event happened, no? So these are the examples of secondary sources. We have books and textbooks, peer-reviewed conference proceedings, journals, histories, biographies, edited works, political commentaries, and this can be found online, no? in these reputable publications which access online, such as Royal Society of Chemistry, the Science Direct online portal, the American Chemical Society, the Nature Publishing Group, the Science magazines, the Elsevier Publishing Company, Taylor and Francis Journals, National Academy of Sciences, International Scientific Indexing or ISI server, no? So, what do you use secondary sources for? Secondary sources are good for gaining a full overview of your topic and understanding how other researchers have approached it. They often synthesize a large number of primary sources that would be difficult and time-consuming to gather by yourself. So they allow you to una, gain background information to the topic, support or contrast your arguments with other researchers' ideas, gather information from primary sources that you can access directly, no? So example, private letters or physical documents located elsewhere. Next, how to tell if a source is primary or secondary. So, we have these questions, no? To determine if something can be used as a primary or secondary source. In your research, there are some simple questions you can ask yourself. First, does this source come from someone directly involved in the events I'm studying? That's primary, or from another researcher. Next, am I interested in evaluating the source itself or only using it for background information? The last one, does the source provide original information or does it comment upon information from other sources? No? So when you conduct a literature review or meta-analysis, you can consult secondary source to gain a thorough overview of your topic. If you want to mention a paper or a study that you find cited in a secondary source, seek out the original source and cite it directly. In addition to this, most research uses both primary and secondary sources. They complement each other to help you build a convincing argument. In essence, primary sources are more credible as evidence, but secondary sources show how your work relates to existing research.
As discussed, a comprehensive literature survey is needed to form a firm foundation to your research study. You must be careful in choosing literatures that you will use in order to support your hypothesis. You must also be wary of fake publishers who have been plaguing the academic publishing industry today. So, predatory publishing, as defined by the University of Michigan Library, is an industry that distributes fake journals for the sake of gaining revenues. It is a type of business developed from the proliferation of open access publishing or the online free access of published scholarly works. Jeffrey Bayal, a librarian at the University of Colorado in Denver, is often credited as coining the term predatory publishers, which he described as the organizations that produce counterfeit journals for the sake that produce counterfeit journals that exploit the open access model in which the author pays. So profit is the primary objective of predatory publishing. These predatory publishers are often dishonest and lack transparency. They try to trick authors into paying to publish without offering any rigorous peer review or editorial services, prioritizing profit over reliable and trustworthy science. They also want to deceive scholars, especially those with little background in academic writing. Also, Jeffrey Bayal even made a comprehensive list of possible predatory journals. The few possible predatory journals are American Journal of Engineering Research, Biotechnological Research, Research Journal of Pharmaceutical, Biological and Chemical Sciences, Journal of Environmental Science, Computer Science and Engineering and Technology, Journal of Electrical Engineering, Journal of Engineering and Applied Mathematics, International Research Journal of Engineering and Technology.
Good day everyone, I'm Hampong and I'm going to report about few negative consequences of predatory journals. First, fake peer review undermines the scientific conversation. Second, publishing in a low-quality journal can make your research harder to find and less likely to be used by others. Third, you could be scammed and lose your work, raising concerns about the legitimacy of the research, damaging the external reputation of the authors, receiving an unreasonable bill for publication fees after the acceptance of the manuscript, unable to retract the manuscript after it has been submitted or accepted for publication, creating academic confusion and negative social impacts if the manuscript is flawed, giving negative impacts of the education of young, inexperienced researchers, disappearing the published article when the journal is closed, unable to deal with copyright infringement, and wasting research and funding. Predatory journals often make the false promise to offer actual peer review when this is not the case, making it one of the most prevalent types of dishonest publishing practices. In the broader framework of scientific advancement, this technique causes numerous issues. Papers with poor research or poor communication do not benefit from peer review prior to publication and may contain injurious information. Researchers in your field are less likely to browse or read independently from fraudulent journals since they are thought to be a low quality and unreliable journal. Hence, the larger scientific community may overlook articles that present significant study findings. Other researchers might not be able to locate your work simply by conducting a typical search because many well-known citation databases do not index low-quality journals. Peer review is a crucial process in scientific research, where experts in a particular field evaluate and scrutinize research manuscript before publication in a scientific journals.
Predatory journals have some common characteristics as below. 1. Aggressive or flattering email invitations are sent to a large number of individuals. 2. Journal websites are not professional in quality and contain spelling and grammatical errors. 3. No verifiable contact information is provided. 4. Editorial board members are not experts in the journal scope. 5. Publication fees are hidden or only disclosed after the manuscript has been accepted. 6. Review policy and process are not clearly stated. 7. No retraction or copyright transfer policy is mentioned. 8. Expedited peer review and publication processes are promised. 9. False impact factors or fake metrics are provided. 10. Low publication fees. To avoid predatory journals, assess the credentials of journals and publishers before submitting the manuscripts. Always check the website thoroughly and check if there is a credible journal's contact information. You can also research about editorial board for their credibility. Take also a minute to look at their peer reviews and publication timelines. Lastly, read through the past issues of the journal.
Moving forward, we will now talk about reviewing papers. As we all know, it is the process of evaluating literature about a certain topic and analyzing it in order to have a deep understanding and create our own synthesized literature. So, reviewing papers is initially done by looking for relevant literature and gathering them all together. So, based on the presentation, once you have collated as many relevant papers as possible, your task is to systematically annotate these pieces of information. So, after a gather of related papers, you must start dealing with the process of annotation. Annotating the review means you prepare a brief description of what the literature is all about and write explanation on the relevance of that literature to your study. In conducting a study, it is necessary to obtain knowledge or information by annotating relevant papers, since it can help in having an in depth understanding about a certain topic or problem. It also enables us to notice and emphasize important details and identify the main points of the paper. So, the process of annotating the review can lead to an enhanced comprehension of literatures and retention of information that would eventually become beneficial to the current studies being undertaken. In line with this, the more nga mas nakasabot sa atong nakuha nga literature with the help of annotations, the more sad nga mas daghan tag clear and reliable set of information nga mabutang sa atong final study output. To prepare a good review of literature, you should be able to scrutinize the literature well and synthesize the information you gathered. So, basically, reviewing literature does not only stop at gathering and annotating the paper. Kailangan po natin check thoroughly ang mga relevant literature in order to ensure a valid and reliable information sa atong paper. So, moving on, how to criticize relevant papers. In order to scrutinize the literature well, we have a set of guide questions here that we can follow. So first, is the theme of the paper similar to the theme of your study? Kung ang atong i-review ba nga study kay nag-coincide sa field of study nga atong gi-undertake. For example, the theme of our study is all about water filtration. Of course, dapat ang atong i-review nga literature is same ra pod og theme which is water filtration. It is not really required to look for details outside the box since we have our own focus in every study that we conduct. But still, it might depend sa variable nga included sa study since there are variables that contain other influential factors nga dapat i-discuss. So again, as long as similar, related, and reliable ang source sa paper, it can already pass the first scrutiny. Second, was the research paper specific, measurable, arguable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound? So I know this is already familiar to you since this was also mentioned during grade 11 discussions. In conducting a study, we should follow the SMART objectives in order for our study to have a sense of direction and accuracy. Again, SMART stands for specific, measurable, arguable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So, in reviewing papers, it is necessary nga i-check kung ang paper nga atong ibasa kay SMART ba siya para kapag mag-conduct ng similar study, there would be a high tendency nga naa sa SMART goals ang atong study. Like, ma-ensure dyan nato nga ang chosen study kay specific siya ma-measure, arguable, attainable, realistic, especially in a way nga ma-address niya ang specified problems found, and time-bound, makaya o accomplish within the given period of time. So the next guidelines, starting from the third one, will be discussed by my groupmates Joya and Armin. Thank you.
Good day. So the third guide question is, what was the perspective of the research paper with regard to proposed scientific concepts, theories, and design? So, in reviewing, dapat nato i-determine kung unsa ang gigamit nga mga concepts, theories, and design sa atong gi-review nga paper, as well as kung unsay stand or claim ato nila sa tibuok study output so that we can add it up or include it sa ato ang paper, especially if same rag perspective ang atong napili nga study sa katong previous study. Are the applied or basic idea present valid? Especially if there is a sense of logicality and validity ang mga na-apply nga ideas sa paper nga review. Of course, we should only obtain information that has validity to ensure reliability as well. Fifth, if those ideas are valid, would it be able to sustain other scenarios including the hypothesis that you are trying to put forward in your study? So, if valid ang mga ideas present, dapat gihapon i-check kung masuportahan ba nila ang other parts of the paper such as hypothesis. We need to put in mind na tanang information sa paper dapat connected to ensure unity and clarity of knowledge and information. 6. Do other objectives of the paper address the research problems? Kung ang objects sa paper nga ato ang review kay wala nag-address sa research problems, then it would not fully become beneficial sa atong study. Dapat i-check nato daan kung nag-address ba jud ang objectives sa research problems considering the fact that they are closely related to each other and they are part of the emphasis of the study being reviewed. 7. Was what was the missing information or the gap in the body of knowledge being considered? Bale, kung unsa ang gap na gipresent sa study, this is also one of the main reason why we review the different kinds of papers to look for and identify gaps in order to have a deeper idea as to what the gap of our current study would be. We totally need to check other gaps that was considered in the previous papers. 8. Were the reported findings verified on the basis of the experimental design? So, if we are focusing on experimental studies, we must also make sure nga ang atong kuhaan nga literature kay nagamit sad og experimental design. Hence, we need to check kung ang findings pa sa atong review na paper kay na-verify based sa experimental design. 9th, was the experimental design adequate to test the variables considered in the previous study? Kung enough na ba jud kaha ang experimental design na gamit sa previous related papers in order to test its variables, so we also need to check if suitable ra ba ang experimental design as a way to test the chosen variables so that we can include it in our paper to increase the reliability and validity, and if ever nga mogamit tag similar designs, we can somehow ensure nga mogana sadto siya sa atong study. 10. Was the methodology adopted from other study or was it newly developed? If it's newly developed, was it validated using standard materials or samples? This is somehow similar to what we are conducting now, the quantitative study. Dapat sad i-determine kung unsa ang methodology kay adapted ba or modified o kung standard materials or samples ba nakapa-validate to sa design so that we will also know its reliability of what methodology is suitable for our current study. That's all for my part. Thank you.
11. Was the methodology appropriate to measure the variables considered? Of course, kung suitable ba ito nga methodology sa pag-measure sa variables. If we find out nga dili, even though it can help us, researchers explore the different natures of methodology. It is still more convenient to look for other relevant papers that utilize appropriate methodologies. 12. Was the pilot or feasibility investigation deliberately looked into? This is also a very important part in reviewing paper. This needs to be prioritized at some point because it determines how reliable the paper is. We need to ensure that we are referring to papers that has deliberately examined the process of pilot investigation and its analysis. 13. How would those reported findings compare to other published findings? Are the findings new, innovative, and relevant? This is necessary as it can help us determine kung ang previous papers kay naay new, innovative, and relevant result so that it can be used as a contributing knowledge to our current study as well. 14. Can the process of technology derived from the previous study be commercialized? Kung profitable ba ang process sa technology nga nagamit sa previous studies or dili? 15. Did the literatures effectively support the discussion of the result and the conclusion? Of course, dapat sad i-check nato kung supported ba ang discussion of result and conclusion by its literatures. Mas ma-enhance ang reliability sa gi-review nga paper kung after sa discussion of findings kay naay mas nakasupport nga literatures, which also helps in disseminating further information about the previous studies. 16. Were the conclusion able to bridge the gap or satisfy the missing information? Of course, dapat makita nato sa ato ang review kung ang gap kay nasolusyonan ba or wala. Solutions to gaps are important as well since it serves as the goal of the study being reviewed. And lastly, were the recommendations convincing and logical? Kung reasonable ba ang recommendation of the paper or dili? Cause if it is, then it can be used as a reference sa objectives and the general process sa atong study. Now, with these questions, we will be able to scrutinize the literatures that we will review based on our research framework that presents the variables and theme of our study. Of course, kada mag-review, pwede na ta mag-base sa gipresent ganiya nga mga guidelines. In addition, whenever we construct our theoretical framework, aside sa mga existing theories, we may also use the scholarly materials nga atong i-review in order for us to make the necessary adjustment to integrate and improve the methodological approach that we plan to implement. By doing so, we can further establish a conceptual framework that is designed to link our own research problem to the findings and the theories of previous studies. Moreover, the result that we may obtain at the end of our study can be used to fill the missing information or the gap that is considered in the study being conducted.
Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to discuss about the discussion. So, an effective review of related literature is a critical analysis of the existing literature that provides context and support for a research study. It asserts that your research pursuit will be able to fill a gap to the field of interest and contribute to the existing body of knowledge. So, a review of related literature can either strengthen or weaken the research problem you wish to pursue, or you may be able to identify a new research problem from it. It is all-inclusive of the information related to the current research being pursued. It is clear, valid, and comprehensive. Different approaches to answering research problems may be adopted or adapted from relevant literature. The review of related literature must also concern the observance of ethical standards. Give proper credit to those researchers or authors who have contributed to the study. This is possible by acknowledging the people whose ideas and findings have greatly contributed to the success of your research endeavor. You can also avoid plagiarism by citing all the references used. Also, paraphrase information taken based on your own understanding. Remember that the research exercise is an important undertaking in education. Therefore, you have to maintain the integrity and trustworthiness of data obtained. That's all. Thank you.
I am gonna discuss about the effectiveness of the review of related literature. So, the effectiveness of the review of related literature may be assessed based on the following. Number 1. The scope of previous studies has been identified and defined, including ethical issues and concerns. Number 2. The various approaches and methodologies applied to past research problems in line with a given field of study have been described, including their advantage and disadvantage. Number 3. The limitations of the previous studies' chosen approaches are knowledge, and the questions that still need to be addressed are highlighted. Number 4. An assertion can pursuing your study will greatly contribute to a bridging a gap to the field of interest has been stated, thus adding data to the existing body of knowledge.
So here are some tips for writing an effective review of related literature. First, conduct a comprehensive literature search. Start by identifying relevant databases and conducting a thorough search of the literature. Use keywords or subject headings to refine your search and ensure that you capture all relevant studies. Second, evaluate the quality of the literature. Not all studies are created equal.
So you have to evaluate the quality of the literature you have gathered by considering the following factors: the research design, sample size, data collection methods, and statistical analysis. Make sure that you only include high quality studies in your review. Third, organize your literature. There are several ways to organize your RRL. You could organize it chronologically, thematically, or by research question. Choose the method that best suits your research study and make sure that your RRL flows logically. The fourth tip is that synthesize the literature. Once you have organized your literature, start synthesizing the information. This involves identifying patterns, themes, and gaps in the literature. Make sure that you critically analyze the literature and draw conclusions based on the evidence presented. Fifth, provide clear and concise summaries. As you review the literature, provide clear and concise summaries of each study. Highlight the main findings, strengths, and weaknesses of each study and explain how it relates to your research study. The sixth tip is that use proper citation. Make sure that you properly cite all sources of information in your RRL. This includes both in-text citations and a complete list of references at the end of your review. Lastly, edit and revise. After you have completed your RRL, take the time to edit and revise it. Check for errors in grammar, spelling, and punctuation, and ensure that your RRL flows smoothly. Overall, an effective RRL is essential for building a strong foundation for your research study. By conducting a comprehensive literature search, evaluating the quality of the literature, organizing your literature, synthesizing the information, providing clear and concise summaries, using proper citation, and editing and revising, you can create a well written and comprehensive RRL.
I am Angela Maris Rendiza from STEM 12 Integrity, and today I will be talking about essential learning. An effective research project rests on your ability to gather relevant studies previously undertaken by other researchers in the field. So, relevant information can be taken from either primary or secondary sources. Typically, information about STEM based or STEM related undertakings can be accessed online via scientific databases, journals, and other secondary sources. Moreover, a synthesis of information from ISI index journals is highly essential to obtain in-depth information about a particular topic of interest. Since ISI index journals is a server that offers indexing of major international journals and proceedings that provides access to quality controlled open access journals. It is highly essential to obtain in-depth information about a particular topic of interest by the use of ISI index journals. An effective RRL is essential for building a strong foundation for your research study by conducting a comprehensive literature search, evaluating the quality of the literature, organizing your literature, synthesizing the information, providing clear and concise summaries using proper citation, and editing and revising. You can create a well written and comprehensive RRL.